So what is IV&V? I like to think of it as a second set of eyes on the software, and IEEE 1012 does a great job of defining what independent verification and validation is. I think it's Appendix C that highlights the technical, managerial, and financially independent. So technically independent, you don't want the developer or somebody who's developed the software doing IV&V. The managerial independence, just want them in a different management chain. And the financial independent, you want the money that the IV&V team is using to be their own, right? You want them managing their own money as opposed to being a direct funding line from a project, right? You don't want for it to potentially be, cut, or there's some sort of financial threat, or maybe, again, if you go back to the managerial, like a managerial threat heading towards those teams. And again, if you're curious about more details, IEEE 1012 does a great job of laying out different levels of independence, right? Because sometimes you can be really, really independent. They actually use a capital I, and sometimes it's more of a lowercase I, which they also use in that document. So if you've got more thoughts or questions about that, I'd point you in that direction. Does a good job of defining some of that. IV&V can be mandated or chosen. I mentioned I was with NASA IV&V. Most of the IV&V that's done throughout NASA is mandated through the Office of Safety and Mission Assurance. So some of the high-profile missions, I've already mentioned some of the human-rated missions at NASA that I've worked on, like the Orion program, which we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But all of the Artemis programs that NASA has are getting IV&V through the Katherine Johnson IV&V facility there in West Virginia. But it can also be chosen. I actually have a customer right now that I'm working with in DoD that is choosing to do IV&V. And so that is a little bit new of a relationship for me, but it's really fun to see leaders wanting to use that type of risk mitigation, which ultimately, that's what IV&V is, right? It's a risk mitigation approach. You're trying to gain insight into the quality of the software.